Here's a question that sounds simple until you actually try to answer it. When one agent hands work to another agent, whose permissions apply? Picture it. Your assistant delegates a task to a specialist agent, which then reaches for a tool that touches your bank account. Should that action run with your full rights, the assistant's rights, or with something much narrower and safer? A recent paper on identity governance argues this quietly is the security problem of the agent era. Today we're breaking down where the risk hides and what a serious answer to it actually looks like. To see where the risk lives, follow one request as it travels down a delegation chain. It begins with you. You grant a broad permission to your primary assistant, something like access to your files, your calendar, and a couple of connected services. That grant is where all the authority in the chain originates. Then Agent A takes over. Your assistant receives the task and decides it needs help, so it prepares to hand part of the job to a specialist. The critical question is how much of your authority travels with that handoff. Next comes Agent B, the specialist. If the handoff simply forwards your full permissions along, this second agent now wields everything you originally granted, even for a tiny, narrow subtask that needed almost none of it. That's the quiet privilege escalation the paper warns about, and it happens without anyone explicitly deciding it should. Finally, the tool call lands. Agent B invokes a real service, and whatever authority it happened to carry into that moment decides exactly what happens next. By the time you reach this point, it is far too late to intervene. Governing every hop before this call is really the whole game. So what does the paper propose to fix this? 3 principles hold the design together. First, bind credentials to a tested identity. Each agent should carry a verifiable identity, not just a borrowed token. You want to know exactly which agent is acting, backed by proof, before you hand it any authority at all. Second, propagate least privilege on delegation. When Agent A hands work to Agent B, it should pass down only the narrow slice of permission that subtask needs, and nothing more. Authority shrinks at every hop instead of flowing through untouched. Third, work at the capability level. Instead of core scopes like read everything or manage all files, you grant permission to perform one specific action on one specific tool. Fine-grained, per-capability authority is what turns least privilege from a nice slogan into something a system can actually enforce at every hop. Now, the core shift is really one comparison, and it's why today's standards fall short. Core scopes are what we mostly have today. OAuth 2.1 gives an agent a broad identity and broad access, something like read your email or manage a calendar. That works reasonably well for a single app talking to a single service. But it turns dangerously blunt the moment that authority has to pass through a whole chain of delegating agents, each one a little further from your original intent. Capability authorization is the alternative the paper pushes for. Permission attaches to one specific action on one specific tool, and it propagates per hop under least privilege instead of flowing through untouched. Treat identity governance as infrastructure, the authors argue, not as an afterthought bolted on once the agents are already busy talking to each other. All right, 4 takeaways to hold on to here. When Agent A delegates to Agent B, the unsolved question is whose permissions apply at each hop of the chain. The paper argues for binding credentials to a tested identity and passing down only least privilege authority on delegation. It calls for capability level authorization, granting one action on one tool, going beyond the core scopes of OAuth 2.1. The big idea is to treat identity governance as infrastructure for multi-agent systems. Standardy.com has more plain English explainers on agent security if you want to go deeper.